So I discovered Des on Facebook actually. I do a lot of my own business through Facebook and I kept seeing this man, Des O'Connor, coming up on my Facebook all of the time, organising all these incredible events. And I kept putting it to the back of my mind until it got to the stage where I thought, I need to speak to this man. Do you know what? It's been absolutely amazing. From the moment I spoke to Des, we jumped on a Zoom call, had a chat. He was so giving. He was so incredibly helpful. And the whole process, I have been so impressed with how professional it's been, how much information I've been given every single step of the way. If I've sent any messages, I've got a reply, normally within an hour or so. It's been a really great experience from start to finish. Really professional, really friendly, you know, and I've just had a great day. I was taking no responsibility for what had happened to me. I wanted somebody else to come in. I was having endless messages with my ex-husband and I couldn't help but react all the time, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, like ping pong. And you know what? I suddenly realised that the only person who was actually going to rescue me was me. I think if you're considering working with Des, have a chat with him. What have you got to lose? You know, from what I've gained today, it's the end of the day. It's been an incredible day. I've made so many connections. You know, go and have a chat with him. You know, tell him what you're doing, look at all of the options, and, you know, I'd absolutely recommend anybody doing an event with Des.
Would you be able to tell if you were living with a narcissist?
Author and therapist Caroline Strawson says the reality of living with a narcissist can leave you feeling trapped by their behaviour and, worse, falling in love with them.
And Caroline should know, she says breaking free from her own toxic marriage to a narcissist took years.
And now she's written a book to help other women spot the signs and is here to share her story with us now. This is your book, How to Heal After Narcissistic Abuse. Hello, Caroline, how are you?
Good morning.
I'm really good. I'm really glad we are actually talking about narcissistic abuse in
Yes.
mainstream TV
Yeah.
because we don't talk about it enough.
Well, what's interesting, and I just said this to you in the break, is actually we are hearing more and more this word being used, and I'm seeing it a lot on social media, and it's almost sort of to the point where it's coming a little bit overused, as it were.
Yeah.
You know, someone might have an argument with someone and say, oh, they're such a narcissist, and it's kind of being used very freely. The same way, I suppose, a period of time we were quite overusing the word anxiety, and then it means when there's a serious problem, it's not taken as serious as it should be, perhaps.
Yeah.
Should we go back to basics and
Yes.
break it down?
Yes.
What actually is a narcissist?
Yeah, I think the first thing to say is narcissistic abuse is a form of domestic abuse. It's just the word that we use, narcissist, like you say, it's overused. And actually, when we overuse the word, it diminishes the experiences of those who are at the hands of a narcissist because it is abuse. So when we talk about the word narcissist, we've actually medicalised the word narcissist because we have something called narcissistic personality disorder.
Right.
And because we've medicalised it, for someone to get an actual diagnosis, there's this book where there are 9 traits of a narcissist, and to exhibit 5 or more means you would get a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. Now, I am sure anyone watching who has had experience of a narcissist will know, firstly, there are way more than 5 traits or 9 traits, and no narcissist is ever going to go, I think I'm a narcissist. I think I need to go and see somebody and get a diagnosis.
Yeah.
Because the problem with a narcissist is they think it's everybody else's fault.
Yeah.
They think it's not them.
Yeah, exactly that.
Let's talk us through your relationship with your ex-husband now.
Yeah.
So when you first met him, he completely swept you off your feet, and then what sort of happened after that?
Yeah, I mean, he got a tattoo with my name on within months of our relationship. Now, I look back and think, Caroline, big red flag.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the time, because I had those feelings of not feeling good enough, and someone doing that for me, I thought, wow, he must really, really like me. And this is actually what we call love bombing. So they're doing and saying and gift giving and saying all the things that you've been desperately waiting for someone to say. And that's what makes it so difficult, because at the start, there aren't necessarily any signs if you don't know what you're looking for.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So at what point, like you say, and at the time, I suppose, if you're enjoying it and you actually really are enjoying spending time with someone and, you know, craving that love, you know, it's, I suppose at the time, it's only nice. It's like he's really into me, I'm really into him, and it, I suppose, moves quite quickly.
Big dopamine rush.
Yes, yeah. And at what point did you kind of actually see the red flags? Because obviously, I suppose you got married, right? So you had to have got engaged. At what point do you start thinking, OK, I'm not feeling as great as I was at the start?
There was, even on our wedding day, I remember we got married in a big old manor house, and I remember looking down, and he was actually in the garden. And I remember looking down and thinking, this doesn't feel right.
Wow.
But most people who end up in relationships with narcissists are perpetual people pleasers. So, of course, everybody was there. They'd paid to come. They were staying overnight. So I went through with it in the hope that it would get better. There was always this disconnect. And when you ask, when did you actually know that it was an abusive, narcissistic relationship? I didn't know till I was out of it. Now, I'm an intelligent woman, and I didn't even realise, because narcissistic abuse is not like a light switch. It's insidious over a period of time, and it chips away at your self-confidence.
So when did it become sort of abusive? Is it like, you're saying he's doing all of these, like, sort of, what you would classically say is positive things, getting tattoo of your name, getting all these things, giving you attention, doing lovely stuff. That's all good stuff if it's in a good relationship. Right. But where was the negative, when did the negative stuff sort of start to seep in?
This is a really important part of narcissistic abuse because it's psychological and emotional abuse. I thought I was in a marriage with a cheat, you know, because he'd had multiple affairs. What I didn't realise up until I came out of that relationship, well, there was a huge amount of gaslighting. So I'd hear these stories, and he was my husband looking at me in the eye and telling me these and sharing these stories. And in my gut, I'm thinking, that's not true. So I would question that.
What sort of stories? Like, as in, like, from, you say he was cheating. Was that whilst in your relationship or in a previous relationship?
He had in a previous relationship because he'd been married before. But also in our relationship. But there would be these elaborate stories. And there was one particular occasion, and he worked for an airline, and he was 8 hours late coming back from a flight. So, of course, I was really worried, you know, where is he? Trying to call the airline saying, has the flight come in on time? Yes, the flight has come in on time. Eventually, when he called me, and I was even calling the police and paramedics saying, you know, is he okay?
Something's happened, yeah.
And eventually, when he called me, he said, oh, I think I've killed someone. Now, I was like, what? And he said, I don't want to talk about it, I just want to get home. And at the time, I'm thinking, well, what's happening? He said, when he got home, there was a woman got off the aeroplane, tripped over, and he had to give CPR. And he did it incorrectly, so she died. Now, I have a medical background. I also, many years ago, worked for the airline because that's where I met him. So I was questioning, well, hold on, where were the crew? Where were the paramedics? Thinking it through logically.
Yeah.
And he got really angry at me. So this is gaslighting. What they do is they make you doubt your sense of reality. So whilst in my gut, I'm thinking, well, hold on a second. But if your husband is looking you in the eye and saying to you, no, that did happen, and very often what they'll focus on is how you are saying it. Oh, you're so sensitive, you're a drama queen, as opposed to the content of the questions that you are asking.
And when did the light bulb go? When will you be able to see all of these traits, notice the behaviour and run for the hills, as it were?
Not until I came out of my relationship and someone said, go and Google narcissist. And I went and Googled it and I was like, whoa. And particularly covert narcissists. We all know the typical overt narcissist walks into a room, you know, we can think of probably many that we know like that. The covert is much more stealthy. They act like the victim. So it almost looks like then, if I say this about them, no one's going to believe me.
Right.
So you feel like you are the crazy one.
You're almost backed into a corner.
Yes, yeah.
So
and you're made the villain. So as the victim, you're made the villain because they create a smear campaign about you.
Right.
And I actually read something that said, and like one trait would be that they would, their actions, so you would respond to their actions, but what they would do was be cross with you about your response rather than actually the actions that have led to that point.
Because in a healthy relationship, if you quiz or question someone about something, they would normally listen. They would respond. And if they've hurt you or upset you, they would apologise, take ownership. It doesn't mean even that they think you're right, but they would be more understanding.
Acknowledge it.
Narcissists don't do that. Everything is your fault and they twist and manipulate you until you feel totally lost and a shell of yourself. And by nature of that it's behind closed doors, you feel like no one's going to believe you and you feel like you're crazy and you isolate yourself, which is why when people overuse the word narcissist, it isolates. I mean, let's be honest, victims of domestic abuse from speaking up.
Absolutely.
It's really interesting.
It is interesting.
It's really fascinating to sort of delve into sort of those sort of character traits of people and why a relationship might be breaking down and for what reasons. We should say that we reached out to your ex-husband, who has sent us the following message, said, "I hope Caroline can finally find some peace and happiness in her life."
Yes.
And now your book, How to Heal After Narcissistic Abuse, is out now. And thank you so much for coming in.
And also, we should say helplines on screen. Head to our website, and if you are suffering or, you know, anything resonates a little bit too much that we've just spoken about, there'll be help on our website for you. Thank you, and well done. Well
Thank
done.
you. It needs to be talked about.
Really
more.
appreciate it.
Absolutely that.
Thank you so much for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload new content every single day, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you in the morning.